Hey, sorry for the interruption, but we wanted to let you know that this week's episode is brought to you by Spotify for Podcasters. Really cool app. Josiah and I use it for every single show that we bring to you every week. You can edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so you can start creating as soon as you log into the platform. You can easily distribute your podcasts to Spotify and everywhere else the podcasts are heard, just like we do every single week. You can also create video podcasts on Spotify, which is really cool. And of course, you can earn money like I'm doing right now by including ads and even podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free. There's no catch. We really love it. We use it every single week. So we encourage you to go download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. All right, let's get back to the show.
On today's episode of the Print on Demand Cast, we're going to be talking about moving from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. Let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Print on Demand Cast, your go-to source of print on demand information, education, and of course, entertainment and the dad jokes and stuff. But listen, before we get down into the details,
let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
I got to ask you a favor. Whatever platform you're listening to this on, if you do us a favor, just like, subscribe, share, review, whatever that means on whatever platform you're on. Do that so that gets the information out to those who need to hear the information that we have on the show. It's greatly appreciated, and we'll even shout you out if you leave an Apple Podcast review. More about that at the end of the show, though. You might be asking, who is we? What information are we giving out? I only see one person. Well, if you're new to the show, allow me to introduce you to my co-host, the co-captain for this show and every show before and to come, Travis Ross from Make Your Mark Design. What's up, man? Happy Monday night as we record this new pod of thunder and rock and roll.
Happy Monday night. As you can see in my background, it's perennially 2:35.
Yeah,
it's always 2:35 in the morning. In the afternoon, I don't know.
We don't know. It's a question that will have to go unanswered because you won't get an answer from us.
So you get nothing.
All right, man. So real quick recap. We always like to waffle, and for those of you that don't know what that means, it's the waffle section, and we just kind of catch up from the weekend. This is one of the weekends where Travis and I actually didn't see each other over the weekend.
We were going to.
So we had plans, but tell everyone how your weekend was. I'll tell everyone how my weekend was, and then we get into the details why everyone actually is here and why they're tuning in.
The weekend was good. Just had a kind of a you just opened a beer.
Yes, I'm drinking a Leinenkugels. If you haven't had them, summer shandies, that's delicious.
They are delicious. We didn't really do a whole lot. Except on Saturday, I was supposed to hang out with you guys at the lake, and instead I sat at a car lot all day trying to buy a car. For those longtime listeners, you heard about my run-in with massive hail a couple, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah, that sounds about right now.
Yeah, and so one of my cars was damaged that they were able to repair, and then the other one they were not. And so I was going to keep it. And then I decided, you know what? Daddy needs a new pair of shoes. So I talked to the insurance agency. They're going to be cutting us the rest of the check. But in the meantime, I was just like, let's go get a car. And so we went and got a new to us vehicle on Saturday, but that pushed us way back in the day. And so by the time we were way down in Denver, you guys were way up in Longmont area, and we were supposed to meet you at the lake. And then we found out that it was probably a good thing we didn't come because You guys got some hail.
Yeah, and I mean, it was. I guess you can't really gauge what Colorado's going to do now weather-wise, but yeah, this is a small. Just what happened.
Welcome to Lake Day. Lake Day. Lake Day. That's a lot of hail.
So for those of you watching on Spotify or YouTube, that's our friend Josh, actually my wife's uncle, and we were there with the fam. So that was probably about 30 minutes of the amount of time we were there. The rest of it was great. So we just kind of huddled and got destroyed. Jason and I were actually out playing Frisbee in the rain initially. We're like, this is awesome. It's very refreshing and this is fun. And then the rain started to hurt. I was like, time out. We're not dealing with rain anymore. We need to go into the tent. So I was like, let's go. And yeah, so but yeah, like I said, 30 minutes of that, and then the rest of the time was great. You know, people paddle boarded, and we played Beersby and Frisbee and all that kind of stuff. So Zach and I held our own undefeated in Beersby, so that was fun.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so good times had by all over the weekend, and yesterday, yeah, our weekend was pretty uneventful other than the lake and hanging out there. So yeah, well, let's get into it then and talk a little bit about some of the stuff that brings us here today for another episode of the Print on Demand cast. And we're going to start with our point of interest.
Point of interest.
All right, Travis, this week you just told me something when we got on the call initially that there's a new toy hitting the market, which is always cause for celebration, whether I'm in the game on a daily basis or not. Anytime there's a new shiny object, there's a part of me that says, do we need to buy it though? So, all of that to say, Epson is coming out with the SureColor F2270, as if the numbers aren't confusing enough. 2100, 3070, 2270. There's always an F at the front of it because that's usually the word that you say when you look at the price tag. F2270 hybrid DTF and DTG printer. Now, we've been talking about DTF for a while on this show. We talked with Brandon Mills in the lobby of our hotel in Long Beach about DTF. And for those of you that are new to the show, new to the industry, DTF does not have the connotation or meaning that it does culturally outside of a print shop. DTF simply stands for direct to film, and DTG is direct to garment. So that's what those three letters, you'll hear them a lot in the industry if you're new, and if you've been in the industry for any length of time, you know this. But man, a new toy, a new hybrid DTF and DTG printer. That sounds awesome.
Right. It does, until you realize that pretty much any DTG printer can do DTF. They're just marketing it in a little different way, which is fine.
You can't let the facts get in the way of a good story. Okay. This is very exciting happening for Epson.
It is kind of cool though that they're, at least acknowledging the fact that DTF exists, because they haven't really. If you've longtime listeners will remember, I don't know, several months ago, we talked about Garment Creator is the RIP software that comes with DTG machines that Epson puts out. So the 2100, the 3070, and they might be a little bit different as far as like, you can't run a 3070 with the Garment Creator for F2100, but they were basically the same software. But back several months ago, they put a little back-end thing that somebody found on some forum, some Facebook forum that I was a part of. And it was basically the ability to print backwards, because with DTF you have to print the white first, and then the color goes over it, and you mirror it. And so typically, obviously, if you're printing on I'm sorry, you have to print. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I'm confused. And anyway, my point is, when you're printing on the film, actually you print the color first. Yeah, you print the color first when you're printing on the film. And then you print the white over it because it's mirrored, it's backwards. And then when you flip the thing over after it's all done, you can see the image through the film.
Yeah.
When it's on DTG, you're actually printing on a garment, you print the white base first, and then you print the color on top of it. And so anyway, in the back end of Garment Creator, they did this little thing where you could kind of add some code into it, and it would give you a button that allowed you to switch when you printed what.
Sure.
And so, so it's been coming down the pike. I think, Epson kind of knew they were going to do this. In fact, they even announced that they're doing a new version of Garment Creator that will probably have that button very prominent somewhere on the, and you don't have to like go into the code to get that button. But this Epson F2270 is pretty cool. It's kind of and we talked about this in the newsletter that we send out every week a couple weeks ago. So if you're not on the email list, jump on that, because you would have known already about this.
That's right.
But it's kind of a cross between the F2100 and the F3070. It's kind of in between those two. It's actually not due out until August. They're taking pre-orders right now, but at some time in August, they'll start shipping these printers to people who pre-ordered them. It's priced at $18,995, which is really, in my opinion, a really good price for what, this machine can actually do. So you got the 2100. It's, I think it started out at like 16,995 or something like that, 17 grand. Now it's down to 11 grand or 10,995. And here's this new one that's, at 18,995, and then you go all the way up to the 3070, and that's over 50 grand, by the time you get the install and the white glove and all of that. Yeah, it's cha-ching. The cool thing about this new printer, it is the bulk ink system. So you are getting an incredibly better price on your ink than you are in a 2100, which uses cartridges. And I mean, it's 50% less or more. I remember when I was getting the 3070s, I was doing the math and all that, and I was amazed at how much cheaper the ink was for the 3070. Well, it looks like the F2270 is going to use the same type of system. It's a bulk ink system. The only difference is versus the 3070s, it only has one print head. So it does have to like go in, print the white, and then come back out, and then go back in and print the color if you're doing garments, or vice versa if you're doing DTF. But this particular print head is much larger than what's on the 2100, so it's going to be a lot faster. You print a full color shirt on a 2100, and you're looking at, anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes, where this one I think is going to be down in the 2 to 3 minutes, depending on how large the art is. I don't have that, that's not a fact or anything yet. That's just what I'm assuming based on the difference in the size of the print head. So it's really kind of a really awesome intermediate, DTG printer. And if they take all of the kind of things that they learned with the 3070s with putting those out, and there were some issues, early on with the 3070s. You guys had a bunch of them. We've had a bunch of them. They finally, I feel like, figured out what was causing a lot of the nozzle clogs and all that stuff. And they retrofitted a filter that their techs came out and installed on pretty much every 3070 that was in the field. And so I'm imagining that they've learned from that, and the 2270 won't have that same issue. Now, that's not to say it won't have other issues, because it's a brand new printer, and you just never know until you get it out in the field doing production.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see just the functionality of it. Like you said, when it first comes out, the DTF hybrid feature of it, what's it going to look like? But to your point, it is a good intermediary. If you don't want to do the 2100, you want something a little faster, and it's still DTG printer. So it's going to be interesting to see how that hits. I'd be curious to see one in person, just to see what that functionality actually looks like. But yeah, it's exciting that there's something else. And to your point, that they're acknowledging DTF officially, not like you said, you can do DTF with pretty much any DTG printer, but it's going to be exciting to see how that functionality moves forward. And maybe this is kind of the first initial, foray for Epson, for an American company to get into DTF, because like we've talked about in the past, one of the things that keeps people from going full bore into DTF is that there's really not an American manufacturer that's kind of gone into that game. So it'd be interesting. Maybe this will be the first,
Yeah.
dabble.
I mean, it's not printing on a roll like a lot of the DTF machines that you get. You see at the print shows, they're printing on a roll. So it's just, you just cut it out and go for it. This is still printing on sheets, that can't be any bigger than the platen. So I'm guessing, like a 16 by 20 type size platen, or sheet that you can print on. But it's still, like you say, a step in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, with that, we will move directly into this week's main event of the episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, the main event.
All right. We mentioned it at the top of the episode, but we're talking about moving from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And if you're listening to this, you might be wondering why in the world we're wanting to spend any amount of time talking about mindset. I think that my mindset is much more important than you realize. And hopefully in the next, 20, 25, 30 minutes or so, we can kind of lay out to you the importance of mindset and the different types of mindsets that you can be caught in. We're going to talk about two specifically, obviously from a fixed to a growth. But in every aspect of your life, it's not just going to be in business. I think mindset kind of determines the place from which you outwork whatever it is that you're putting your hand to. So mindset is going to set the precedent, set the bar, whether that's good or bad, for what you're doing in your life. It can stunt your growth, it can facilitate your growth, it can do both. And sometimes we don't really stop to think or take time to press pause in the hustle and the grind of side business and trying to build something from the ground up and hustle culture that our country is very well known for. To kind of stop and analyze, okay, well, where am I working out of? Like, what am I, where am I rooted here? What mindset am I stuck in, or what does that look like?
Yeah. Mindset can be a very kind of hot button topic, if you will. A lot of people are like, oh, that's just, new age mumbo jumbo or whatever. And then other people, they swear by it. And I do think it's important. I will caveat this entire episode by saying I am preaching to the choir. I feel like I've very much grown up with a fixed mindset. And so this is as much therapy for me as hopefully it'll be information for you and some, encouragement to look into this for yourself, because it can actually make a huge difference in where you end up in life. Where you end up in your relationships, and obviously in our case, where you end up in your business. If you can have more of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So it really comes down to how these mindsets are reacting to information or inputs differently. And they respond differently to information specifically about performance. And so a fixed mindset, they're thinking about how well they have done. For example, like a test result almost, you know what I mean? And with people with a growth mindset are thinking more along the lines of what they could do to improve. And I mean, we could probably end the podcast right there and you get the whole idea, but there's a lot more, to kind of dig into this, this stuff. So I think what we should do is we're going to look at some of the characteristics of a fixed mindset. And just pay attention, see if this is something that, you have a tendency towards. And then we're going to look at some of the characteristics of a growth mindset. And again, pay attention, see if some of those things, ring true for you. And then at the end, we'll talk about how, kind of some strategies to move from fixed to growth with your mindset. Because again, don't turn off this podcast because we're talking about mindset. We're not talking about, the latest cool thing that Printify or Printful did, or whatever. This is, we're kind of a holistic podcast. We're talking about your whole business, and mindset is really, really important. So
for sure,
let's jump into kind of that fixed mindset mentality and some of the characteristics that come with that way of thinking.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll start with the fixed mentality, or another phrase we can use that can be synonymous is self-affirmation or fixed mentality. Intelligence and talent are innate. So an effort is pointless because what you are able to cannot be changed.
Right. And this is saying like, it's all about your intelligence. And if you're not, if you don't have the intelligence in a specific area, you're not able to get to that because in other words, those other people, they have more self-discipline or they have more knowledge or access to knowledge. And because I don't, I am not going to be successful. That's kind of the conclusion you come to. It's based on your talent or your intelligence, or your lack thereof.
Right.
I mean, I can totally relate to that. When I'm playing pickleball, I'm like, well, that guy over there, he's awesome. And I don't have that talent. And so the fixed mindset says, well, this is just where I am. And, there's nothing I can do about that.
Right.
I'm never going to be LeBron James. Actually, I don't know how good LeBron James is at pickleball, but my guess is that
I feel like he might have a natural inclination, but a lot of the times, so like talent is, and this is something that I've talked with a lot of folks about, where talent is kind of like, talent is raw. It's something that you have. Skill is refined. Skill is taking that talent and refining it into something that is better than what you were naturally. So you have a natural ability to do something, but when you go through a refining process and really work on that talent, it can become a skill. So to that end, another characteristic of the fixed mindset, to strive is to have no talent, because talent is innate. There is no point in exerting yourself. Those who are not born with talent strive. And there's a particular fear of trying and not getting it because it could denote that one's talent in reality is not such. So again, that's saying, okay, well, like to your point with pickleball, okay, if I'm just naturally not good at pickleball, then I'll never be good at pickleball. And if I try to be good at pickleball, then I'm striving, and that's just not, it's just not so.
It's basically saying, people that don't have the talent strive. And in this connotation, strive is a bad thing. And it's actually evidence that I have no talent. And so people that are trying hard, this particular fixed mentality can write them off as, oh, they're really trying hard to be better. And he's going every day at 7 a.m. to play pickleball. And, he's only going to get to a certain level, and they just basically write it off, and there's no point for me to do that because I don't have the talent either. And so it really does hamstring you. You just, it gives you, I guess, an opportunity to let yourself off the hook.
Sure.
Which, in business can be the death of your business, in a relationship, it can be the death of your relationship,
for sure.
Because you're giving yourself an excuse because of this fixed mindset.
Yep. The next one is a dislike of criticism or feedback. The judgments seem assertive for people with fixed mindsets, since he does not consider the possibility of improvement. Which, I mean, this one, out of all of the fixed mentality ones, I mean, I can relate to all of this, obviously. But the dislike of criticism or feedback for me is one that I've really had to be intentional about coming out of, because if you're not willing to take feedback or criticism, again, to this point, you feel like it's an indictment on your natural ability to do what you're doing well, and so you must suck. Because and it's hard, and feedback and criticism are never easy to take, whether constructive or otherwise. I think it's a place where you have to really bring yourself to be open to feedback. I just, in all aspects of life, I sent a text to the creative pastors at my church that I go to, where I'm really good friends with them. And I was on the team yesterday. I was leading, and I sent them a text, and I said, do you have feedback on the guitar sound? Do you have feedback? Give me any feedback that you have about yesterday in my capacity that you feel I could improve on. And so now it's intentionally putting myself in those conversations of, okay, I'm gonna welcome the criticism and the feedback so that I can get better. But when you're in the fixed mindset, you don't do that because it feels like an attack. And you're fight or flight. You'll be like, hey, I'm gonna fight you to the death on this because you're attacking me as a human, or I'm just gonna leave the situation. And either way, I'm not addressing the fact that there's room for improvement. I'm just gonna go wallow in my self-pity because I'm very upset that you even pointed out something that could apparently be done better.
Right. And that kind of ties into the last one. In the fixed mindset kind of category, the success of others is a threat.
Yeah.
People with fixed mindsets quickly feel judged.
Yep.
And they'd rather compete than collaborate because other people appear like a threat to them. And I see this all the time in business, particularly even in print on demand. You know, we're very, very secretive of our designs or our Etsy accounts or our, or whatever it is, because we see life as a
competition.
It's a competition. It's a fixed pie. There's only so much pie to go around. And so I ain't giving you any of my pie, where the reality is the pie is infinitely larger than a person with a fixed mindset.
There's so much food to eat at this table.
Exactly. And so when someone else you see someone else's success, it's very easy to judge them and be like, well, they probably cheated, or they have talent that I don't have. They have abilities that I don't have. And so therefore, again, I'm making excuses for where I'm at. And what that does is it short circuits my ability to actually try harder or learn from the success of others, because I've judged them. And so I've devalued that information.
Yeah, for sure. So now we'll look at from self-affirmation, fixed, to self-development, which is growth. Some of the characteristics of a growth mindset. Intelligence and talent are dynamic and can be improved. What you are born with is only a starting point from which you can improve with effort and attitude. So again, this is going to be very much contrasting to what we've just talked about, obviously. And we've kind of talked about all of these characteristics and discussing the first fixed mentality characteristic as well. It's kind of like the opposite of what each of those was. But again, to that end, the talent and skill and being raw and refined, the differences between the two, you can get better at something that you're naturally good at. There's always room for improvement. The only ceiling to that is what you put on yourself. If you have that fixed mentality, you just kind of act as your own governor, to where you can't go past a certain speed or point or distance or whatever, because you feel as though you've arrived, for lack of a better term. But yeah, there's always room for improvement.
Or that you can't arrive in that particular field of, business or relationship or whatever. I'm just stuck in where I'm at, and I'm not going to get better. And if I do get better, I have to strive, which, people are going to recognize, and I'm going to get shit for that. And, so I'm better off not trying because I'm going to get criticism and feedback and, et cetera, et cetera. It just all piles on itself.
Trying is automatically denotes there's a risk of failure, which a fixed mindset doesn't like. I know people who don't want to play new card games or board games because it puts them in a position to be the person that doesn't know what's happening, and they hate being the person that looks dumb. They just don't like it, or they don't want to fail at it. And so there's always going to be failure, and the fixed mindset's afraid of what that could possibly mean. And to that
really end, that ties into the second one, passion for challenges. People with a growth mindset are passionate about new challenges and discovering the unknown because it's a unique learning opportunity. I remember, I've always known, well, not always, but I knew how to play poker. We play Texas Hold'em a lot. And I remember probably 3 or 4 years ago, you started this Texas Hold'em kind of, monthly thing. And it was just a bunch of our friends, and we'd come over, and I knew how to play, but I was not great at it. And I remember at the beginning, at the first, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, I would kind of like halfway through, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done with this. This isn't, I'm not that great. I'm kind of done. It's kind of boring. But I'll tell you now, like 3 years later, as I've played a lot more and I've gotten a lot better, it's so much fun. I'm really enjoying it. And I'm also realizing how much further there is for me to grow and learn about this game. I mean, I still don't consider myself that great, but I'm way better than I was then. I think it's because I had a passion for this new challenge, this new thing, which is a characteristic of a growth mindset, a curiosity for things that you don't know, because you can learn more about it and you can get better at it. And that's kind of exciting to somebody with a growth mindset.
Yep, for sure. And then the next point too is they like feedback, and failure is a learning opportunity. So feedback is not judgment, but an opportunity for learning and improvement. And although it hurts to make mistakes, we understand that it is a way to learn, and that failure does not define who you are. Which again, that little piece could go to a whole different topic about identity and what you invest your self-worth into that we don't have time to go into. But to that end, I think it's impossible. It's not impossible to learn from your successes, but it's way more likely and beneficial when you learn from your failures, because there's just so much more room to grow. You're not gonna learn. You'll learn more from failing than you will from succeeding. And so, to being afraid to fail is actually siphoning off an entire, wealth of knowledge, experiential knowledge that will help you go further the next time. And what for apparel, we failed all the live long day. Just so many things that we wanted to do and it didn't work out, or an idea or a project or a brand or a client or whatever. And each failure, well, at the moment, did feel like this catastrophic happening in its own respect, depending on the severity of it. I mean, not everything was this like existential crisis, but there were moments where something would happen and the conversation internally was like, I tried my hardest and that did not work out. And so you allow yourself to sit with it. So obviously none of this is to say that you shouldn't be able to kind of sit with and or mourn the failures that you encounter, because that's good to do. You can be present and process those things. But then at a certain point, looking at it from the lens of, okay, but so what can I learn? How can I improve? What can I do better next time? How can I take this? Even if the next time isn't even in the same industry or in the same space or in the same business model, there's going to be a next time. the next time might look different. But what can you take from that time into the next time to improve what you put your hand to? And the growth mindset is able to see failure through that lens. Doesn't mean, like I said, that you don't feel it, but you can grow from it. Yeah.
And like you said originally, they invite feedback in a growth mindset, because they realized that they don't know it all. And then the other thing is that failure, like you said, doesn't define who they are. It's simply a part of, and this is the next one. It's part of the process.
Yeah.
It's part of the process of growing from, this place where I know this much to this place where I know this much. And so to that end, the fourth one and the last one, until we'll get to the next section. A growth mindset focuses on the processes, not the outcome necessarily. And you might say, well, the outcome is the most important thing. And I tend to, in my fixed mindset, agree. I want to have, the outcome, but as I have, been in business, as I've just grown older and had, relationships, I realize that the process is so much more important than the outcome.
Yeah.
People with a growth mindset, they prefer learning. They dare to try. They're not afraid of making mistakes. It really kind of, if you are in this business, you have a piece of this because you started something that didn't exist before, and you are daring to try to make something of this. The key is to focus on the processes and not the outcome, because after 3 months, after 6 months, after a year, the outcome isn't what you thought it was. Well, don't focus on the outcome. Focus. What were the processes to get you there? Where can you get feedback to grow in the things that you did and didn't do in that 6 months or that year that your outcome didn't meet your, what you had expected it to be. And I think that's huge. That's a huge. I had this little fruit fly that's like flying around, and I have to like try to catch it. I'm gonna kick its butt, but that's a huge piece of the pie here, or piece of the puzzle. It's not. Yes, outcome is super important, and we all want to be millionaires, right? I mean, we all want our businesses to just go great, and but that's not the reality. The reality is that you're going to fail often. But the only reason, or the only way you become a failure is if you don't get back up and try again. That's when you become a failure. If you keep trying, you're not a failure. You just failed. That was just a one-time thing. And then you learned from that, hopefully. And the next time it'll be different. So that's the, kind of the contrasting fixed mentality, fixed mindset versus that growth mindset. So now we're going to, kind of move on to the obvious question. How do we how do we move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset? So let's jump into there now.
Yeah, for sure. So we have 8 points here, and we'll try and move through them quickly. All of these could be their own episode conversation, deep dive, which maybe, we can revisit some of these in long form, but, for the sake of time, we'll kind of just hit these at a 30,000 foot view. But the first thing is, which state are you in? The first thing you have to do is identify where you are, because unless you know where you are, you won't know where you're going, or you won't know how to get to where you're going if you don't self-identify with where you actually are, which was for some of the fixed mindset folks out there could be a little challenging to admit that you are in fact in a fixed mindset. But you have to know. Self-reflection is key. Self-awareness in general and culture is at a premium. And so if you can wrap your mind around this skill of self-awareness and the gift that it can be to you, your business, your family, your relationships, and all the above, you'll be head and shoulders ahead of a lot of folks who just don't have it. But you're going to need it to identify exactly where you are, so you know either where you have to go. So that's number one.
I'll also say, to this point, you are probably a mix of fixed mindset and growth mindset. And in some areas of your life, you have a tendency to have more of a growth mindset.
Yep.
And in some areas of your life, you probably have more of a tendency to have a fixed mindset. So that's
Yep.
also part of it. It's like, it's not just going, okay, I am a fixed mindset person or I am a growth mindset person. No, you are both. You
Yeah.
are all of the above. And part of that self-reflection is saying, okay, which areas of my life do I have a tendency to go towards the fixed mindset?
Yeah.
And which areas of my life do I have the tendency to be more growth mindset? And then it's just, it's pick and choose. And then from there, once you have that kind of self-reflection, the next thing that you need to do is you need to ask yourself why you want to develop a growth mindset. And you might say, well, that sounds, I don't know, that sounds a little, hippy dippy or whatever, but we've talked about it on this podcast before. And we almost did this episode on this one point here, but we talked about know your why. Why are you in this business? And this, we're specifically focusing on, there's that damn fruit fly again. We're specifically focusing on business. Yeah, get him. We're specifically focused on the print on demand business and why you are doing that. But in, typically when we talk about know your why, but in this case, you need to know your why on why you want to actually develop a growth mindset, because you likely won't be able to promote change in yourself until you know the why behind why you want to change in the first place. And you might be like, well, it's because I just want to be better. We'll go deeper, self-reflect.
We're going to need a little more.
Yeah, we're going to need a little more.
That ambiguous thing won't be enough to sustain your why, because better is subjective. You need to get real specific about what better looks like for you. I think for me, in an application outside of print on demand, it's just like, got a gym membership, trying to do something active every day. And I've been in a fixed mindset when it comes to health, fitness, all that kind of stuff for a very long time. And so going to a growth mindset, the question is, why do you want to go to a growth mindset? And identifying things that in my future I would like to be able to do or like to be around for, I don't want to die young. That primarily that being number one, but that's the whole thing, is like better is attainable. It's subjective, but set specific goals as to why, or specific reasons as to why you're wanting to move out of that place that you are. And it also helps you set mile markers as to your goals and how you can keep improving. So number 3 would be change your perspective on failure. We talked about this, in the first kind of section, but start to see failure as a sign of, as it's the learning process. It's not inability. It's not an indictment on who you are as a person. There's no such thing as an overnight success. I think one of my favorite things that is out there in like a meme or graphic or whatever is the iceberg, right? You see this much of the iceberg breaking through the water, but under the iceberg, there's a huge accumulation of ice that took so much time for that thing to break the surface and eventually sink the Titanic. Too soon? Okay. But all that to say, there's no overnight success. And if there is such thing as overnight success, their success will not be sustained, because they don't know how to navigate. You don't know how to navigate success unless you don't first know failure. You have to know failure to quantify what success looks like. And so it's a necessary part of the process. The process of success is failure. And it sucks that it's that way, but it's just how it works.
Yeah. It's the whole, you've heard the story of Thomas Edison, and he made, they were like, how does it feel to, fail 1,000 times before you figured it out? And he's like, I didn't fail. I figured out 1,000 ways not to do it. And he had a growth mindset for sure in that particular, area of his life. We had Robin Johnson way back on like episode 20. And I was trying to remember her quote that she said, but I remember when we were talking about, comparison, because comparison is just the worst, and she was talking about how, you may be looking at somebody and you're seeing their chapter 20 and you're thinking, well, I could never get there but they're on chapter 20. They had 20 chapters
You're on
before
chapter
that,
3.
and you might be on chapter 3. Someday you'll have a chapter 20, but right now you don't. And so comparing yourself to somebody else's chapter 20 just does not help you at all. Think about Bezos starting in his garage, and
For sure.
and it was a bookstore, and now it's, the largest e-commerce platform in the world. And you look at him now and it's like, wow, he's got enough money to send rockets into space and, do whatever he wants. And I could never be like that. Well, he wasn't like that the whole time. And so he's had a lot of failures along the way.
Yeah.
And so we need to change our perspective on failures. It's a necessary part of the process. And, the process that's the valuable part.
Yeah. I think when you're looking at people in there, and I had this conversation with Madeline a lot when she went through the Etsy stuff when her first store got shut down, and she felt like a failure because she was comparing herself with all these other stores. I think the one thing that can help with comparison is to introduce context. So if you have the context of where that person came from to get to their chapter 20, you'll identify with their chapter 3 or 2 or 4. And so you'll understand that, okay, they were where I am, and so I can get to where they are, but I have 17 more chapters to go. And also, there's people who haven't even started writing the book. Okay.
Right.
There's people who are on their couch thinking about writing a book, and they haven't even, penned the first chapter. So context really helps keep comparison in a healthy place, because it's not bad to have aspirations and goals and mentors and people who inspire you. But context is king when it comes to these types of things. You have to have the appropriate context and realize the entirety of their journey. So number 4 would be change your point of view on challenges. Kind of the same thing as failure, because sometimes challenges can result in you failed. It's okay. But instead of fearing or running away from challenges, accept challenges for what they are and enjoy the opportunity for self-improvement. The harder the challenge, the greater the learning, and the greater the growth. So there is a to scale kind of payoff here that you can reap benefits from, but don't just shy away from challenges because they're hard.
Yeah. I mean, my Monday sucked. That's the reason we're recording so late, because we were going to get together in person and do this. And I just, I saw your text, at like 4:15 or something like that. And I was just like right in the middle of a hard challenge.
Yeah.
And I was just dealing with it. And there were so many different challenges today. I'm not even kidding. And when we thought we solved one, then something else popped up. And then we saw, it's just one of those days, And so, it took me another 2 hours to finally say, hey, let's just do this, on StreamYard. And, so I can't come out to your house. But at the same time, I'm looking at the things that we did accomplish today, and we understand so much more about the processes that we were going through and the things that need to change in order for us to succeed. And it would have been very easy to just get rid of or just stop. Do you know what I mean? We could have just stopped and been like, okay, we're done. Monday's over. Everybody go home. We're not even going to mess with this. I'm just done. Luckily, it's my business. It supports my family. I don't have the opportunity to do that. I have to push through, and so, so because of that, because of that accountability to my bank account and my family, my wife and my kids, it causes me, to change my point of view on challenges and well, first of all, just push through them. But in retrospect, I mean, pretty much, I think anybody listening to this, when you look at like hard things that you went through in your life or in your business or in your relationships, you can always, if you want to, you can find incredible nuggets of wisdom and incredible growth opportunities that you probably took. I hope you took them. And it really does. If you can see it like that, you can maybe look at it from the other side of the iceberg and say, you know what, or the mountain or whatever it is. I know on the other side of this, there's something good. It's an opportunity, not necessarily a barrier, if you will. And so changing your point of view on challenges is huge.
Yeah, for sure. Number 5, and we'll try and go a little quicker here because we're about at almost an hour, 10 minutes, 12 minutes away from an hour. So
we
anyway,
got plenty of time, man. These guys, they're like, keep talking, guys. I can hear them in their cars and, at the gym, they're like, keep going.
We're learning so much.
You're going to learn today.
So number 5, notice how you speak and act. This could for real be its own episode and something that I've even been processing myself in the last couple of weeks. But if you find yourself saying things like, I'm not good at this, or, oh, they just have a natural talent, what you have to understand, and this is a principle that that is true regardless of what you subscribe to in your personal life, but the things that you speak have a tremendous power to affect the way you perceive and view your own business, life, relationships, success, and you don't think about it because we say so much so frequently.
Yes, we do.
In general.
On this podcast.
Even on this podcast. The number of words that we speak in a day, in a week, as humans is crazy. And the stuff that flippantly slips out of our mouths concerning ourselves goes unnoticed because it's just a part of the diatribe of daily life. Yeah. But you have to be super careful when you say things like, I'm not good at this, or they just have a natural talent, I'll never be able to do that. You don't understand the limiter that it actually puts on you. So you have to change those kinds of phrases to, I'm not good at this yet. Or and you've tried very hard to become so talented. Yet is a powerful word.
Right.
Okay. Use and instead of but when describing yourself in challenging situations. So
huge.
Start taking inventory and being intentional about the things that you say. And when you find yourself saying, I'm not good at this, say out loud, no, that's not true. I'm not good at this yet. You have to speak it. Like it's crazy. And it might be like, man, these guys, you're in Colorado, you had some of the good kush. No, we didn't. But this is just truth. It's principles that ring true in any walk of life. So you have to be really intentional about the things that you say.
Yeah, I've been recently challenged about my use of the word but, and I'll say, something about a relationship or an argument or whatever it is. And then I'll say, but I knew that, I didn't really, I'm trying to figure out an example, but, but I'm trying to figure out an example, but I can't find one.
Yeah.
How about I'm trying to figure out an example and eventually I'll come to something.
Yeah.
You see the difference in those two phrases?
Yep.
And that's been challenging to me because I have a big butt and I use it a lot, I cannot lie. So using that word and at the end of your sentence, just changing that word can really do a lot for you when you're speaking speaking out these truths and these challenges, because we all have challenges and we can overcome them. All right, move on.
All right. Number 6, consider feedback as an opportunity and a tool. Use feedback to improve your performance rather than criticism or a reason to feel attacked or rejected. We talked about this. And again, a whole nother episode, but separate yourself from your art or your work. You are not your work. You're not a product. Don't invest your identity so deeply into what it is that you do. And use feedback to improve what you do instead of it taking it as an attack as against who you are. And we see it's just, I think it's just an offset of this whole like tribalism, identity politics thing. Everyone invests their identity so heavily in things that genuinely don't matter. But here we are again. It's like your business could succeed, it could succeed, it could fail, but you as a person aren't a failure. you as a
Right.
person. So getting to that place of separating yourself from your art and your work
And
is huge.
it's not easy either. I mean,
No.
Longtime listeners know that I was in worship ministry for years and years and years. And so I wrote a lot of songs,
Yeah.
and I would go to these different events and things, and we would play songs for each other and talk about that. And it was so hard to separate myself from my
Oh, yeah.
art. And when they would say, I remember one time, a well-known, artist in the Christian community that I really looked up to, after I played my song and people are, sitting there, he was there. And it was really exciting to play it for him and others. And he said, man, your verses are pretty good, but you ain't got nothing for the chorus. And it was like a dagger, and
For sure.
obviously that was in my 20s. That was hard. And even if it is hard, and it is going to be hard when you have criticism, the processing that out loud, talking to somebody that you trust and care about, man, that really hurt when you said that. But what can I gain from this? What can I say? Okay, well, let me look at the chorus then. Let's talk about this. And so it's the same thing in your business. You are not your work. You are not your business. And so if you have a bad feedback on Etsy or, or Amazon or whatever, that it doesn't reflect on you.
No,
you are not your work. And so use that as a tool, that feedback as a tool, and not a dagger.
Yeah, for sure. Number 7, value the process above the. Did you get it?
No.
It's
still here. Damn it.
That's
sorry.
All right. So value the process above the final result.
Yep.
Enjoy the process of self-improvement and learning more about than the results obtained. This attitude will help you consider the bigger picture and develop a greater sense of purpose.
Process is king.
Oh, for sure. And I'll just say too, real quickly, as we start to wrap up, I think a lot of the times what you'll find too is that what you learn in the process of something. So if from success to success, or achievement to achievement, the valley in between those two mountaintops is the process. And sometimes you'll learn stuff in the process that you don't feel is at all applicable to the mountaintop that you're trying to get to until you're in the next process, and then you realize, oh God, I learned this skill I did that this last time, and now I have to reapply it. Oh, that's why I went through that process. That's why I went through that failure or that hiccup or that hurdle. Yeah. It's all very much you will find that it all has a use. There's a greater purpose to the point of this, the bigger picture.
I won't go long-winded here, but you've all seen television shows, Succession comes to mind if you've watched that.
Yes.
And you see these people who are incredibly privileged and they never had to work a day in their lives, and they had to, and they're just trash people.
They're horrible.
And because they never had a process, they never had to go through the process and learn from that process, that everything was just handed to them. They just got the result without the process.
Right.
And you don't want to be like that. Nobody wants to be like a character on Succession. So value the process above the final result.
don't be one of the Logan children, and they may not be fiscally bankrupt, but morally would be an argument for that.
100%.
Number 8, reflect each day on what you failed and what you've learned. Remember that it's essential to focus on not only what you failed at, but also what you can improve on. Again, we've told this whole time, don't view failure as failure. View it as a way to succeed and learn from it. So at the end of the day, again, this comes back to self-reflection. You might not want to rip off the Band-Aid that soon, but at the end of the day, you're going to need to self-reflect. Okay, what did I not do good at? What could I improve on tomorrow? What did work? How can I make it better? And spend a couple minutes at the end of each day reflecting on what you did well and what you can improve on, what didn't go so well, but that you can make sure will go better the next time that you encounter a similar situation.
Yeah, it's really part of that process of moving from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset in whatever area that you've recognized in step 1 and step 2 that you have a fixed mindset in. Part of the process of moving to that is actually thinking about your day. and that specific area of your life, and maybe even journal a little bit. I mean, not to go too, crazy on you or hippie on you, but
No,
that's,
listen,
it's a good thing to actually spend time reflecting on your day.
This is that for me. First thing in the morning, finding some kind of centered place to work out of for the rest of my day, or processing the day before, or what I have upcoming. Journaling's huge, and it's what you write down. You have more, just the action of writing it. It's more of a cathartic release. It also helps you remember things and remember positive things when you actually write out what's going on. So, call me crazy, but I've started doing this way more frequently. And it's definitely helped. So
That was awesome.
yeah, thank you. Travis, anything else before we wrap this thing up?
No, I think, go re-listen to this.
Yeah, rewind it. And maybe behind the scenes, Travis and I will pick a couple of these 8 points and maybe expound on them a little further, maybe, because there are some of these that can be their own episode that you can definitely dive a little bit deeper into. But in the meantime, like Travis said, rewind, not to, pat our own backs or anything like that.
But this was a damn good episode.
But my God, the insight. These are honestly, these are my favorite types of episodes that we do, because I love talking about this stuff. And so, just being able to, from experience, by the way, understand, I've said this before when I've stood up to speak to a congregation, I usually preface it with, understand that everything I'm about to talk to you about, I'm in process in. I'm just sharing with you out of my process. I've not arrived to any of it. So to that end, this is all still being shared out of process. Travis and I certainly haven't arrived. We don't find ourselves to be experts on most anything unless it's dad jokes, karaoke, cigar smoking, poker playing, and Las Vegas strip gambling.
Speaking of dad jokes.
Yeah. Good thing I said that.
I know. That would have been a tragedy.
No, well, it's because okay, so again, you got a new car, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yep. I did. And the AC was actually out. And the mechanic said he couldn't fix it. And I was like,
what?
I was like, it's a new car. What? I basically told him it'd be a lot cooler if he did.
And that is your dad joke of the week, under the gun, right at the buzzer, a buzzer beater of a dad joke, what we provided for you on this episode. But hey, as I said at the top of the show, if you're listening, thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen, to subscribe, to click play, whatever you did to get to this episode and be listening to us now. Thank you so much. Do us a favor. If you're on Apple, please leave us a review. With the star number associated with it. You all know how that works. But it's greatly appreciated on Spotify. You can just leave us a star review. And we would greatly appreciate it, because it does help the algorithm. It helps us conquer the strange algorithm that no one can really put a finger on or pulse or figure out, but help us out. And give us a review. We'd greatly appreciate it. If you want to follow us on social media, printondemancast.com/Facebook is where you can go to do that. We have a Facebook group there, Answer the Questions. There's my Shih Tzu Ollie coming to make a cameo on the show. He's very confused at the lighting, but he's going to. So you can join the group and the conversation on printondemancast.com/Facebook. Good place to ask questions, not only of us, but to other people that listen to the show as well. We're on Instagram, printondemancast.com/Instagram and /YouTube. This is where you can find us on those respective platforms as well. If you don't do social media and you hate it and you think it's the scourge of our existence, then I could probably be talked into that point of view. But we have an email address if you'd like to use that, info@printondemancast.com. And then if you just, snail mail, we don't have a P.O. box or anything like that. So you can't do that old school mail. Courier pigeon, also probably no. We don't really have a honing beacon, but maybe one day as things continue to grow. You can sign up for our newsletter, printondemancast.com, and that's where you're going to find more information about the show in general. Our merch store is there as well if you want to pick up a t-shirt. But sign up for the newsletter because you get more insights. You would have learned about this new Epson DTG hybrid early because we talked about it last week in the newsletter. So lots of good information coming there. And again, you get a bonus dad joke. So what more could you possibly want than a bonus dad joke? That in and of itself is reason enough to sign up for our newsletter. So please avail yourself of that as well. So for Travis, I'm Josiah, and we'll see you next time right here on the Print on Demand cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.